Have you ever stopped to think, what do people really hear when you say your name? Not just the sound of it, not just the syllables, but the energy behind it, the truth inside it, the confidence or the fear you carry into that moment. Because whether you realize it or not, every time you introduce yourself, you're not just telling people who you are, you're telling them who you believe you are. We live in a world where people size you up in seconds before you even finish your sentence. They've already made decisions about you, how much to respect you, whether to listen, whether to remember you. It's not fair, but it's real. And you can let that intimidate you, or you can own it. Because that moment, that tiny window of introduction, it's more than small talk. It's not just polite conversation. It's your first impression, your first battle, your first chance to lead. And too often, people waste it. They mumble their name. They shrink their voice. They look down. They speak like they're asking for permission to exist, like they're apologizing for taking up space. But you weren't born to shrink. You weren't made to blend in. You're here to make people feel your presence. And it starts with how you introduce yourself. Think about it. What are you telling the world when you speak your name? Are you hiding behind titles, hoping your job will speak for you? Are you rattling off your background, praying something in there will impress them? Or are you speaking with a quiet power that says, I know who I am. I know what I bring. And I'm not afraid to show up fully. Because that's what people are hungry for. Authenticity, clarity, presence. We don't remember people who give us facts. We remember people who speak with conviction, people who say something simple, but you feel it in your chest. And when you meet someone who owns their identity, not in arrogance, but in truth, you feel it. You lean in, you trust them. So ask yourself, if you were meeting you for the first time, would you be inspired? Would you want to listen? Would you feel moved? Or would you forget? Every great relationship, every career breakthrough, every opportunity, it all begins with a moment, a handshake, a name, a sentence. That's it. That's how it starts. And the people who understand this, they don't wait for confidence to find them. They build it one word at a time. They practice the art of presence. They shape their story into something real, something bold, something worth saying. Introducing yourself isn't about bragging. It's not about pretending. It's about standing in who you are with honesty, with power, with heart. And when you do that, something changes. People lean in, doors open, energy shifts. Because the world doesn't need another person trying to fit in. The world needs someone real enough to be known. And here's the reward. When you learn how to introduce yourself with that kind of presence, when you stop playing small and start owning your space, you don't just influence the moment. You shape how people see you forever. You set a tone. You create momentum. You start showing up for your life with purpose. This isn't about impressing people. It's about being unforgettable. It's about walking into every room knowing you belong there, knowing your voice matters, knowing that the world might not give you your worth, but you can speak it into existence. So the next time someone says, tell me about yourself, don't flinch, don't panic, don't reach for safe, small answers. Say what's true, say what's real, speak with your chest, look them in the eye, and let them meet the strongest version of you, the one who's not afraid to be seen. Because if you don't claim your identity, someone else will decide it for you. And there is nothing more powerful than a person who decides right now that they will no longer let the world define them. You define you. And it starts with one introduction. But here's the truth most people never hear. You can't introduce yourself powerfully if you don't know what you're introducing. And that's why so many people get it wrong. Not because they aren't smart, not because they aren't capable, but because they've never stopped to ask themselves the most important question, what do I really stand for? Instead, we fall into patterns. We say what's expected. We memorize answers we think sound right. We talk about jobs, schools, titles, because it feels safe. But safe doesn't make people feel. Safe doesn't lead. Safe doesn't inspire. If your introduction sounds like everyone else's, you become just another face in the crowd. And no matter how much potential you have, potential without presence is invisible. We're taught to be polite, to be humble, to avoid standing out too much. But what they don't teach you is this. Humility is not about playing small. It's about being real. And being real means owning your voice without apology, without exaggeration, without fear, because people aren't waiting for perfection. They're waiting for truth. Most introductions fail because they're surface level. People talk about what they do, but not why it matters. They list what they've done, but not who they've become. But you are not your resume. You are not your job title. You are not a bullet point on a LinkedIn profile. You are a living, breathing story. And if you can't speak that story when it counts, it's not just a missed chance, it's a missed identity. Think about the people you've met who made a lasting impression. What did they have? It wasn't fancy words. It wasn't some secret formula. It was presence. It was clarity. They knew who they were. And that confidence didn't come from arrogance. It came from alignment. They weren't performing. They were connected to something deeper than facts. Purpose. Purpose makes your words land. Purpose gives your name weight. Purpose turns a simple sentence into something unforgettable. And here's the shift. When you speak from purpose, you stop trying to impress and you start to express. That's when everything changes. But to get there, you have to break the pattern. You have to let go of the autopilot version of yourself, the one who plays it safe, the one who speaks quietly just to be accepted. Because real confidence doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being clear. Clear on who you are. Clear on what you value, clear on why you're in the room in the first place. When you speak from that place, people listen differently. They feel something deeper because the human brain is wired for meaning. It craves connection. It's constantly scanning for who's real, who's confident, who knows what they're about. And if you show up unsure, disconnected, or guarded, that's exactly how they'll experience you. But the moment you decide to be intentional, to pause, to breathe, to speak from your center, something shifts. You go from noise to signal, from background to spotlight. You take control of the moment. And here's what's even more powerful. How you introduce yourself doesn't just shape how others see you, it shapes how you see you. Every time you say your name with purpose, every time you speak your truth out loud, you reinforce your identity. You build your inner strength. You remind yourself of what you're capable of. And the more you do that, the more your energy begins to change. Your presence starts speaking before your words do. People feel your certainty. They sense your value even before they know your story. Because the deepest part of communication is not what's said, it's what's felt. So stop repeating lines that don't mean anything to you. Stop leading with what you think people want to hear. Start leading with truth. Start leading with presence. Start speaking like your words carry weight, because they do. When you introduce yourself, you're not just sharing information. You're setting a tone. You're shaping an experience. You're showing people how to treat you. And if you want to be respected, if you want to be remembered, if you want to open doors, you have to speak like someone who deserves it. This isn't about being louder. It's about being clearer. It's about standing in your worth without waiting for permission. Because the people who make the greatest impact aren't always the smartest. They're not always the most talented, but they are the most aligned. They speak with purpose. They speak with conviction. And because of that, people believe them. So ask yourself right now, what would it look like if you introduce yourself like your life depended on it? Not with fear, not with hesitation, but with the fire of someone who knows their voice matters. Because once you learn how to speak from that place, you won't just change how the world sees you. You'll change how you see yourself. And that changes everything. And once you've claimed that space for yourself, there's another shift that begins to unfold, one even more powerful. You start to see that your story isn't just something to tell. It's something to own, something to protect, something to live by. Because the way you speak about yourself isn't just how others learn who you are. It's how you remember who you are. And in a world constantly trying to distract you, label you, reduce you, it's easy to forget. That's why your story matters. Not just the polished parts, not just the achievements, but the climb, the quiet moments, the setbacks, the lessons that broke you open and the ones that built you back up. That's the power most people never tap into. They're so focused on sounding impressive that they lose their truth. But what really captures attention, what really moves people, isn't a list of accomplishments. It's authenticity backed by purpose. You don't have to be extraordinary to be powerful. You just have to be honest. The most magnetic people in any room are the ones who speak from their core. You can feel it. There's no performance, no pretending. Just a deep sense of someone who knows where they've been and knows where they're going. And that doesn't come from perfection. That comes from clarity, from embracing the whole story, not just the highlight reel. Most people are terrified to speak from that place. They're afraid of being too much, afraid of not being enough. But the truth is, your strength lives in the very parts you try to hide. When you introduce yourself from that place, raw, clear, unwavering, you become unforgettable. Because realness cuts through noise. Realness creates connection. And we live in a world starving for something real. There's a reason people remember those who speak with emotional truth. It's not just charisma. It's not just confidence. It's alignment. When your words match your values, when your energy matches your message, when your presence matches your purpose, people feel that. They trust it. They remember it. And the beautiful part is you don't need permission to speak from that place. You don't need a platform, a degree, or a title. You just need to decide that your story matters enough to be spoken with strength. No one else can do that for you. No one else can give you that kind of power. That's yours to claim. Start by asking yourself, what moments shaped me? What values do I refuse to compromise? What does my voice stand for? And most importantly, what do I want people to feel when they hear my name? Because the words you speak will either introduce a version of you that's been watered down by fear or a version that's been refined by fire. One fades, the other stays. There is no power in pretending. There is only power in alignment. And once you get clear on your story, once you speak it without shame, without apology, you'll begin to realize something life-changing. You've been enough this whole time. You've always had something worth saying. You've always had a message in you that could move people. You just needed to believe it first. And when you finally do, when you speak with that kind of clarity, it doesn't just inspire the people around you. It invites them to do the same. That's the ripple effect of showing up fully. You give others permission to stop hiding. You become the spark that reminds someone else of their own voice. And that impact, it reaches further than you'll ever know. So stop editing yourself to be accepted. Stop rehearsing lines that don't match your truth. You weren't made to be a version of someone else. You were made to be you, boldly, clearly, unapologetically. And when you start introducing yourself like that, everything changes because your voice becomes a force, your presence becomes a message, and your story becomes something that doesn't just get told, it gets felt. This is how people rise, not by chasing status, not by faking confidence, but by standing in their truth, speaking from their soul, and letting the world feel the weight of their why. You don't need a perfect past. You don't need a flawless script. You need to believe deeply that your journey holds value. And then you need to speak it like your life depends on it, because it does. And once you understand the weight of your own voice, there's something else that begins to shift, how you speak about others. Because it's not just about how you introduce yourself. It's about how you speak life into the people around you. And most people never realize this. The way you introduce someone else is a mirror of your character. It shows what you see. It shows what you value. It shows whether you're here to lift others or just to promote yourself. Every time you speak about someone, you're either giving them wings or building walls. You're either highlighting their strengths or shrinking their light. And in a world full of noise and ego, the rarest thing someone can experience is to feel truly seen. To be introduced not just by what they do, but by who they are, by the effort they give, by the character they carry, by the unseen value that often goes unnoticed. That kind of introduction doesn't just reflect on them, it reflects on you. Because when you speak highly of others, you don't lose power, you show maturity. You show vision. You show confidence. It takes strength to elevate someone else without feeling smaller yourself. And it takes self-awareness to recognize that giving someone else honor doesn't take any away from you. In fact, it multiplies it. How you introduce others is a test of your leadership. Do you speak with intention or just go through the motions? Do you highlight their essence or just recite their credentials? Because credentials are impressive, but character is unforgettable. And when you call out someone's character in front of others, you give them something most people are starving for, recognition with depth. We all want to be seen, not just for what we do, but for who we are when no one's watching. So when you introduce someone and shine a light on their integrity, their grit, their kindness, their consistency, you're doing more than just being polite. You're reminding them that they matter. You're validating the parts of themselves that don't always get praised. And that can be life-changing. This is where true connection begins. Not in status, not in small talk, but in sincere acknowledgement. And when you become someone who sees others deeply, people start to feel safe around you. They trust you. They follow you because they know you're not just in it for yourself. They know you're the kind of person who builds, not breaks, who recognizes, not reduces. And here's what's powerful. The more you practice introducing others with presence and heart, the more you sharpen your ability to see people clearly. You start to notice details. You start to listen with more depth. You start to move through the world less consumed with your own image and more focused on connection. And that shift, that's where influence grows. Real influence isn't loud. It doesn't need to dominate. Real influence lifts. It encourages. It builds a room where others rise, not just one voice that overshadows everyone else. When people hear how you speak about others, they're not just learning about that person. They're learning about you, about your awareness, your depth, your humility, your leadership. So when you introduce someone, pause. Don't rush it. Speak like their story matters, because it does. Speak like your words can shape how they see themselves, because they can. And speak like your voice has the power to plant seeds of belief in someone else, because it does. This is what separates the average from the impactful. The ones who go through life with empty words, and the ones who use every word with purpose. Because when you speak about others with clarity and respect, you're not just raising their name, you're raising your own standard. That's the kind of person the world remembers. Not the one who always talks about themselves, but the one who sees, who elevates, who leads with presence, no matter who's watching. Because how you introduce someone today might be the very thing that helps them walk into their future tomorrow. So start speaking like every word is a gift, because it is. Speak like you have the power to unlock something in someone else, because you do. And speak like you know the value of another human soul is not measured in titles, but in truth. You want to lead, you want to be respected, you want to build something that lasts. Start by paying attention to how you introduce people. Start by making your words count. Start by being the kind of person who makes others feel bigger when you speak their name. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more voices that build, more voices that carry weight, more voices that lift others just as powerfully as they lift themselves. And you can be that voice right now. All it takes is the courage to speak with purpose, not just about yourself, but about everyone you bring into the room. And once you begin to carry that level of intention in how you speak about others, something deeper begins to awaken your presence. Because words alone are not enough. Words matter, but without presence behind them, they lose their power. Anyone can say the right things, but not everyone can say them with energy that commands attention. And in a world full of noise, energy is the true difference maker. You've met people like this. They walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. You feel them before you hear them. That's presence. It's not volume. It's not charisma. It's not some gift reserved for the lucky few. Presence is a decision. It's how you carry yourself. It's what your posture says when you don't speak. It's what your eyes communicate when you make eye contact. It's the space between your words, the stillness in your breath, the fire beneath your calm. When you speak, people are not just listening to what you say, they're listening to how much you believe it. They're reading your energy. They're scanning your body language. They're asking, without even knowing it, can I trust this person? Do they really stand behind what they're saying? Do they mean it, or are they performing? This is where confidence is born, not in knowing all the answers, but in being deeply connected to what you do know, in owning your truth, in being comfortable in your own skin, even when the spotlight is uncomfortable. And that's what gives your voice its weight. That's what makes people lean in when you speak, not because you said it perfectly, but because they felt it was real. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be polished to be unforgettable. You need to be present, fully here, fully in it, fully connected to the moment you're in and the message you're giving. Because when you're fully present, every word lands deeper. Every pause carries tension. Every silence speaks confidence. Presence also means being in control of your energy. Are you rushing through your words, or are you letting them breathe? Are you speaking to impress, or are you speaking to connect? Are you trying to dominate the space, or are you creating a space where others can rise too? These are the questions that shape your impact. And presence isn't just for speeches or introductions. It's in every interaction, every meeting, every conversation. When you make someone feel like they're the only person in the room, you've already elevated their experience. That's the kind of influence people remember. Not because you were the loudest, but because you made them feel seen, heard, valued. But presence takes practice. It takes awareness. You must learn to slow down, not to speak slower, but to connect deeper. You must learn to silence the inner noise, the doubt, the insecurity that tells you you're not ready, not enough, not worthy, because you are. You don't have to wait for some future version of yourself to begin showing up with presence. You can begin now, right here, as you are. Stand tall, speak from your core, breathe through the tension. Let the energy in your words carry your intention. When you say your name, say it like it has meaning. When you introduce someone else, say it like their value matters. When you tell your story, speak it like it's the most important message someone in the room needs to hear. Because it might be. People don't just remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. And the one thing that will always cut through distractions, doubt, and distance is presence. It's what transforms a moment into something unforgettable. It's what turns simple words into a lasting impression. So don't wait for confidence to arrive before you decide to show up fully. Confidence is not the start. Presence is. And when you bring presence into the way you speak, introduce, connect, and lead, you become unstoppable. Because now it's not just about what you say, it's about who you are when you say it. That's the foundation of lasting impact. Not perfection, not performance, presence, your energy aligned with your truth, your words backed by your belief, your story told from a place of power. That's what people follow. That's what people remember. And once you begin leading with presence, you don't just change how people experience you. You change how you experience yourself. You begin to trust your own voice. You begin to respect your own journey. And from that place, you begin to rise, not with noise, but with purpose. And when presence becomes your natural state, not just something you switch on, but something you live in, you begin to feel something else rise within you, ownership. Because now you're not waiting for moments to happen, or you're not hoping someone sees you, picks you, validates you. You're stepping forward and saying, I'm here. You're not performing. You're not hiding. You're declaring your place in the world, one conversation at a time. This is what most people never realize. Every introduction is a choice to either step into your power or to shrink back into the background, a choice to either represent the strongest version of yourself or to hand the moment over to fear. And those small decisions, they shape your identity. One word, one moment, one introduction at a time. Because every time you speak about who you are, or speak about someone else, or speak up when others stay quiet, you're either reinforcing your future or running from it. And the people who make the biggest impact in life aren't the ones who had it all figured out. They're the ones who showed up anyway, with a shaky voice, with a racing heart, with unfinished stories and imperfect confidence. But they still showed up. They still spoke. They still introduced themselves like they had a reason to be in the room. And they did. So do you. The truth is, no one's going to walk up and hand you your identity. No one's going to give you the perfect words. No one's going to build your confidence for you. That's your job. That's your responsibility. That's your power. Because if you don't define who you are, the world will guess. And the world rarely guesses right. You weren't born to be a background character in your own life. You weren't meant to speak quietly just to keep others comfortable. There is a version of you that is waiting right now to be spoken into existence, to be introduced, to be seen, not just by others, but by you. And it won't happen by accident. It happens by decision. You decide to stop minimizing your worth. You decide to speak with more certainty. You decide to bring your full energy to every room you walk into. You decide that you're done rehearsing smallness and ready to start living boldly. That decision creates a shift, not just in how others experience you, but in how you experience yourself. Because the way you introduce yourself isn't just for them, it's for you. It's a declaration to your own mind, your own spirit, your own future. I know who I am and I'm not afraid to say it. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And alignment is what makes you magnetic. It's what makes your energy speak louder than your words. It's what makes people believe you before they even understand you. When you walk into a room and you know your value, you don't need to prove it. You don't need to push. You don't need to convince. You simply embody it. And people respond to that. They feel that. Because presence backed by ownership creates impact that no script can match. This is the edge most people are missing. They're saying all the right things, but their energy is disconnected. They're speaking, but not owning. They're present, but not rooted. But when you bring all three together, your story, your presence, and your ownership, you become unstoppable. Because now you're not just introducing a person, you're introducing a force. And from that place, every door feels different. Every conversation has more weight. Every opportunity becomes something you're ready for, not because it's perfect, but because you are prepared. And preparation doesn't always come from practice. It comes from decision. The decision to take yourself seriously, the decision to believe that your voice matters, the decision to carry yourself like someone who belongs in every room they step into. You don't need anyone's permission to rise. You just need your own commitment to your growth, to your truth, to your power. And once you start living from that space, you stop chasing introductions. You start creating them because the most powerful introductions aren't just spoken. They're felt, they're remembered, and they open doors that stay open. Not because of what you said, but because of who you were when you said it. So the next time you speak your name, remember what you're really doing. You're not just saying who you are. You're declaring the kind of life you're building, the kind of presence you carry, the kind of impact you're here to make. And if that doesn't give your words power, nothing will. This is your moment. Speak it like it matters, because it does. And once you start speaking like it matters, everything around you begins to shift. People treat you differently Not because you've changed who you are, but because you've started owning it out loud. That's the moment you stop introducing yourself as a name and start introducing yourself as a presence with weight, a presence with vision, a presence with direction. The world doesn't respond to people who play it safe. It responds to people who speak like they have a future worth building. And if you want to shape the world around you, if you want to leave an impression that lasts longer than a moment, you must make one decision. Never let your voice be an afterthought. Too many people walk through life invisible, not because they lack potential, but because they've convinced themselves to stay silent. They've told themselves that maybe they're not ready, that maybe someone else will say it better, that maybe if they wait long enough, confidence will come knocking. But confidence doesn't show